Well, good morning. I'm here today with a good friend of mine that I've known for quite a while, and she's one of the few persons of the female persuasion who doesn't mind talking about her age. In fact, she kind of likes to talk about her age because, believe it or not, she's 90 years old. Can you believe it?
That's a lie.
Huh? You're not, oh, how old are you?
101.
101?
Yeah.
How did I miss the last 11 years?
I don't know. I think you created something out of what you wanted.
Oh, I see. So excuse me, she's 101, but you don't mind talking about it, do you?
Oh, no, I'm proud of it.
Okay, well, good. Yeah, a couple things I wanted to ask you, and some of this is going back a ways. Do you remember when you and Hi and me and Mark first met?
It seems like forever.
Yeah, I think it was about 11 years ago, because that's when we moved in.
Well, then it couldn't have been longer than that.
Yeah, I
we
guess.
met you guys right away.
Okay.
And enjoyed you so much, both of you.
Right. And I remember Hi was such a wonderful storyteller.
Yes.
I know we ran into each other a lot in the halls and things, but I remember one time in particular where we were up at your apartment and the four of us were chatting. Do you remember that? Maybe. Sort of.
Sort of.
You're entitled. If you're 101, you can forget some things.
Yeah, but that was... I remember how much we both enjoyed meeting you guys.
Well, that's great, because we enjoy meeting you too. Okay.
And I believe it was planned.
Yeah.
It was a really nice relationship.
It was. I guess I want to kind of skip around just a little bit. Another fascinating thing about my friend here is that she is the only person I know who taught in college and does not have her own degree. Would you tell me how that happened again, so I can sort of remember, because I don't remember all the details.
Well, I was director of an organization that was promoting fluoridation of public water supplies, which was quite an issue at that time.
Okay.
And I was doing a fair amount of public speaking. The next thing I knew, the head of a couple departments invited me to a meal, and obviously it was sort of a test thing.
Right.
And I must have passed with flying colors, because the next thing I knew, I was teaching there.
Now, what did you teach?
I taught about public health primarily, a lot about fluoridation, which in those days was a big, lot of anti-fluoridation.
There was a controversy.
Sort of like
the backs and the anti-vaxxers now.
Yeah.
Okay.
And well, that Kennedy, who opposes everything now, is bringing all these things back as issues.
Yeah, right. So we're going back. How many years ago was that? Let's see. Do you remember how you were in your 30s, 20s?
I had more than my 20s.
Oh.
Must have been in my 30s.
Okay, so that would have to be at least 70 years ago. So in the 50s, 1950s?
I'm not a numbers person.
Yeah, well, that's okay. I'm not either. Whoever's watching this can do the math, if anybody ever watches it. Okay. Another part of your background that's so interesting, tell me about when you started getting into the art.
Into what?
Into art.
Well, I had no experience at all with art.
Mm-hmm.
Zero.
Right.
And we moved to Florida.
Okay.
And we were a very poor fit.
For Florida. You weren't Florida people. Okay.
No, we were not.
Okay.
And we were not making friends.
Okay.
We didn't golf, we didn't play tennis.
Right.
And we were having socially, we were happy ourselves.
Yeah.
But having a pretty hard time socially when people found out we didn't play cards, we didn't golf, we just didn't fit.
Yeah.
And we were there because we were needed by the family.
Right.
And that was where I learned about Japanese art.
Okay.
And became involved with a whole Japanese setup that existed there, and I didn't know about it.
Right.
And it was a beautiful building, and it had a restaurant in it, and you could eat out of doors on a veranda. And actually, that was my first exposure to that kind of art, and I just was drawn to it.
Right. And you had a knack for it, right?
What?
You had a real knack for it.
Yes.
Right? Because you've been very successful over the years. You sold quite a lot of things.
Oh, yes.
Am I correct? Is the picture behind us hanging over, is that one of yours?
I did it.
Yes.
Any picture that's in here,
yes.
I painted.
Right. So you see an example of, you can't see the fine, the detail, which is one of the interesting things about it. Do you remember when you were going to give Mark and me lessons?
Yes.
I almost forgot that.
Was a failure.
It was a failure because we were bad students.
But I think it's the fact that we were able to accept that, and it became even closer.
Right, right. Yes, I had forgotten that until this moment.
However, Mark's chocolate cookies were the love of my life.
Right.
And
he took care of you.
And he with it.
Huh?
And he with the cookies.
Well, and yeah, we were very fortunate in that I'm also a chocolate lover. And he found a recipe. It was a triple chocolate, a triple chocolate cookie recipe. And at that time, his nickname for me was Baby. So he called these baby cookies. So I think they were very expensive to make because, they had so much chocolate. And he would make them occasionally. And when he did, he would always give you some.
Oh, absolutely.
You were baby number 2 to him.
And boy, did I love him.
Right. And I remember that he put, we used to have we still have a jar, and he put the cookies in there. And, they were irresistible, so in just a few days they'd be gone. And I said, I'm not really sure I should be eating this many cookies all the time. So we came up with a plan that he would put a certain, he'd always he'd make a plate for Joe or a container for Joe, and then he'd put some in the cookie container. Then he would take plastic freezer bags and divide into frozen packages and put them in the freezer. And we thought that would slow me down. And it did. It did, because it was more trouble and whatever. The problem is that they were delicious frozen. They were just as
wonderful.
They were just as good frozen as they were unfrozen. So I assume you went to Florida. Were you retired already when you went to Florida? I was working in the public works.
Water supply in Massachusetts.
Right. And he had a very...
He was in the Army. That's why we moved around.
Yeah.
And so I was very untraveled.
Yeah.
And so it was fascinating for me to live in Louisiana. And places I had never even thought about.
Right.
And I also, on my first trip to Florida, ate my first ham sandwich.
Oh.
Because I was brought up in a kosher Jewish household.
Okay. It was high as well?
He was brought up in an unkosher.
An unkosher, okay. Okay.
And
so did he tempt you like Satan in the Garden of Eden with the ham? How did you get the ham?
And my trip moved down to Louisiana to get married. There was no restaurant on the train. And it was a 52-hour trip.
Oh my gosh.
And whenever they would stop at a place to take on passengers, someone would come around with a basket and offer sandwiches. And they were always boiled ham on white bread. And I said, no, thank you, a few times. And then I got really, really hungry.
I bet.
And so I ate a ham sandwich, and believe it or not, I didn't die.
You didn't die?
So, but to this day, I don't eat shellfish.
Okay. So that was the early days. You ate your ham then. So, but did you still eat ham after you got married?
He was completely,
Oh, okay. Did he eat shellfish? Did I eat shellfish?
He'd eat anything.
Oh, okay.
And we did not keep a kosher house.
Right. So you were and you were living in Baltimore?
In Boston, actually.
Oh, Boston. Yeah. I'm sorry. Forgive me. Boston.
You want to move Harvard?
That's where you spent most of your life, married life together.
I taught there for over 30 years.
And Hy, all that time, was working in the public works. Huh?
He was a state employee.
Right.
And he was in water supply.
Right.
Red tide, things like that.
And did the children come while you were in Boston, or did you already have the children from when you were traveling around the country?
We had them gradually, like other people do.
Okay. So when you retired, then you moved to Florida, and I assume you were there for a while. What brought you back to Cleveland?
Well, we never really wanted to be in Florida.
Okay.
And my daughter, with her family, was living in Cleveland and had no family at all there. And so we decided that, without asking her whether she wanted us, that we would move near her.
Okay.
World War II this was after Hy came back from being overseas.
Okay. That's right, you were separated for a bit. Right.
For 3.5 years.
Wow. And was he in high danger zones, or?
Oh, sure he was,
So
but he was setting up hospitals.
Right.
So that he was, on paper, he was in every place.
Right.
That had trouble in the East. But he knew several languages because he went to Boston Latin School.
Okay.
And so he actually became the communicator for telling people what they had to do.
Right. Okay.
And he sent home a picture of himself carrying 2 toilet bowls, which I thought was very funny. And my mother thought it was offensive.
Oh.
And one day, I put it under the glass on the table, the kitchen table. And one day, it disappeared. Okay. And she says, "Oh, I wonder what happened to it." And I never got that one back.
You never got it back. Okay. So you moved to Cleveland. You were living, how far away did you live from your daughter?
Very close.
Very close.
There was no point in
right.
not being close.
Right. Well then, how did you finally end up moving to Judson Manor?
Trying to remember. I had heard about it, and my daughter was in a chorale group,
mm-hmm.
and sang here, concerts here with that group.
Mm-hmm.
And so we went to hear her
mm-hmm.
as part of a family thing, and realized it was a lovely place.
It is a lovely place.
And we never regretted moving here, and that's where it was here that we began to make friends in Cleveland.
Oh, okay.
We didn't know anybody but my daughter and her family.
Right.
So, and I both felt we were a good fit here.
Do you remember how long you've been here? I know you were here when we got here 11 years ago.
Oh, it's not really. I'm not a numbers person.
Yeah, you said that. There's probably a record somewhere. If we really want to look at
could tell you.
Judson could tell me. Okay. Is there anything you want to know about me that you don't know?
I know a lot about you.
Uh-oh.
Because I read the book.
Oh, and Mark mentioned the book. Yes. Mentioned me a lot in the book, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you were a couple.
Yeah.
And you were each so different.
Mm-hmm.
And yet you were wonderful to know as a couple.
Ah, okay. Well, that's very sweet to hear. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not going to beat you up on camera. We'll be in trouble. The elder abuse, one elder abusing another elder.
I'm going to remember that forever.
Okay. So, and now when you and I moved in, you had your own apartment and you were in independent living, and you stayed there for quite a while after I died.
Not too long, because the issue of I was already in a wheelchair.
Oh, okay.
And going grocery shopping in a wheelchair was no fun.
Right.
So I moved myself to the second floor.
Okay.
And it took me a while to get used to it, but I have not regretted it because I'm as independent in every way that I want to be, and yet I get the services I need.
Well, that's very nice to hear. That's very nice to hear.
So it was, for me, Judson has been a really, really home for me.
Well, that's very nice to hear. I'm glad you feel that way.
Look at the friends I made.
Well, sure. This has been kind of fun, hasn't it?
Yes.
Okay, maybe we'll do it again.
I didn't know what to expect, but we've always had good communication.
Right.
And I've enjoyed this time with you.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. We'll plan to do it again sometime.
Okay.
Okay.